Hi everyone. It's Sunday, April 5th. Time for another HideNet Week in Review. I'm Vera Dordick. It was another week in a market driven by the pandemic, with prices lower again and parts of the industry at a standstill. Again, this week we'll start with Europe, where editor Andrea Guolo says that the market is in disarray, with orders being canceled and producers who deal with fresh hides in a real bind over how best to handle those. And even for regions where businesses and tanneries may still be operating, supply chain problems are wreaking havoc. In Britain, no business was reported with Europe this week, as most producers were choosing local options to deal with hides. As such, prices are the same as last week, with the 36 plus ox at 75 to 80 cents in sterling per kilogram and 80 to 85 cents in euros for the Irish. Andrea reports that the situation in the bull market in Europe is rather terrifying. While the reference price for the week is €1 per kilo for southern German bulls, there are emergency contracts being concluded at prices that can be lower than half of that. Most sources say this is situational and not indicative of what the real market would be. With regard to cows, the price depends on the origin and the capacity to salt those hides. In Italy, where they can't be salted, fresh cow hides are selling for 25 cents, while other origins have seen only declines of a few cents from the previous week. In his analysis, Andrea takes a detailed look at what's going on through Europe, both with regard to the auto market as well as the fashion sector. He also sorts through the situation with regard to the fresh versus salted hides throughout the continent. Turning to the U.S., prices were once again lower across the board. Packers were selling in volume at lower prices to get ahead of the situation. That said, there are still plenty of rumors about prices below reported sales, especially on volume business. The price of regular weight heavy Texas steers was reported as low as $12 and as high as $16 for seasonal weights. And after last week's very high slaughter, this week's total was 50,000 hides less, mainly because of problems with labor, and at least one East Coast plant was closed for pandemic-related issues. Meatpacking workers are increasingly worried about their health and safety and aren't coming to work, hence the lower slaughter. Demand might be waning a bit as well. Slaughter for the week was a total of 626,000. With regard to exports, total raw and wet blue hides sold during the week was 674,900, which is up 31% over the previous week, quite high. Combined shipments were also higher at 521,700, which is a 9% increase over the previous week. In our observations, we have a guest editorial by Craig Rolson, who provides perspectives for a falling market. From South America, editor Ronald Guiel reports from Brazil that the price of raw material was down this week. It came in at 75 cents in reals, which is just 14 cents because of the exchange rate. TR1 prices were also down by 5 cents, and sales were concluded at 60 US cents per square foot. The situation in Brazil is pretty much like the rest of the world, with demand for footwear and other leather products at nearly zero. Among the other news stories from Brazil, slaughter is down significantly for March as well as for the first quarter, and the leather and footwear entities in the country are approaching the government looking for specific measures to mitigate the economic damage to the sector during this coronavirus pandemic. From elsewhere in Latin America, this week it was interesting. We saw an unidentified video of hides being buried once again. Sources dispute where this came from, but it's not a good sign. And if you remember, there was such a video circulating last summer at the low point of the market as well. In Argentina, the government declared tanneries essential businesses, so that eased some of the standoff they had been having with meat producers about the removal of hides. Mexico joined other nations on lockdown this week, and Uruguay is seeing part of its meat workers go on strike this week over the different protections from the pandemic and issues they have with that. So that's all the news we have for today, and until next week, good night from HideNet.